Have you ever planted seeds in a garden? Maybe you've noticed how quickly grass grows in the spring. Have you ever seen plants such as sunflowers follow the sun as it moves across the sky? And have you ever observed how stems of plants grow upward while their roots reach downward? These are just a few examples of the way plants grow, develop, and respond to stimuli. So how do plants begin their life cycles? What are some of the ways plants grow and develop? How does growth and development vary between plants? What are some of the different types of plant responses? And what controls these responses? During the next few minutes, we're going to answer these questions and others as we explore the fascinating ways plants grow, develop, and respond to stimuli. As you know, living things go through various stages, referred to as life cycles. Living things are born, they grow, reproduce, and eventually die. Similarly, most plants go through a life cycle. They begin life as a seed or spore. Over time, they grow and develop. When mature enough, they reproduce, and eventually, they die. You compare. What do this pine tree, this lily, and this cactus have in common? That's right, they're all plants, but they also reproduce via seeds. We'll begin our discussion of plant life cycles by looking at seed plants and the seeds themselves. What exactly is a seed? A seed consists of stored food and a complete plant embryo that has temporarily stopped growing. A seed is a packet containing all of the structures and genetic material needed to give rise to a new plant. Seeds have several reproductive advantages. First, seeds are protected from many environmental factors such as drought and predators by an extra layer of tissue called the seed coat. Seeds can also be dispersed in a variety of ways. Because seed plants do not need to rely on water to reproduce, they've been able to spread to drier climates. And the presence of seeds introduces a dormant phase into the life cycle of seed plants. This enables the embryo inside the seed to survive until environmental conditions are favorable for growth. Following fertilization, each ovule develops into a seed. The ovary which surrounds the ovule develops into a fruit. Most commonly, the fruit surrounds one or more seeds. There are thousands of different kinds of fruits, like apples, grapefruit, bananas, and pears, to name just a few of the common fruits that we eat. You decide. Are tomatoes a fruit? Yes, foods such as tomatoes, squash, and peas that we often think of as vegetables are actually fruits. Fruits are classified according to their origin. A fruit such as a cherry that develops from a single ovary is called a simple fruit. Aggregate fruits are formed from several ovaries in a single flower. Raspberries and strawberries are examples of aggregate fruits. In some plants, such as pineapples, simple fruits of several separate flowers fuse together to form a multiple fruit. If you've ever eaten sunflower seeds or peanuts, you know that seeds can be quite tasty. When you eat these foods, you're actually eating several seed parts, including a seed coat, an embryo, cotyledon, and endosperm. The seed coat provides a tough protective covering. It encases the embryo that develops from the fertilized egg. The embryo remains in a dormant state, not sprouting until conditions are favorable. Seeds also have a substance called endosperm. It's a food storage tissue that serves the function of nourishing the new plant. In popcorn, the endosperm expands when heated to form the edible part of the popped corn. The embryos of flowering plants, or angiosperms, have at least one seed leaf, called a cotyledon. In many plants, nutrients are stored in cotyledons. Angiosperms are often grouped based on whether they have one or two cotyledons. Plants such as corn, lilies, grasses, and palms have just one cotyledon and are called monocots. Most trees, shrubs, and flowers, on the other hand, are referred to as dicots because they have two cotyledons. In addition to having cotyledons, there are several other seed parts. Above the point of attachment of the cotyledons is a structure called the epicotyl. Later, it gives rise to the upper part of the stem, the leaves, and the terminal bud. The hypocotyl is located below the point of attachment of the cotyledons, and in many plants, it gives rise to the lower stem. The radicle is the lowermost part of the embryo. It eventually forms the roots. Perhaps you've seen seeds falling from plants or observed intact seeds in animal scat. These are just a couple examples of seed dispersal. Seed dispersal involves the scattering of seeds from the parent plant. The dispersing of seeds is important to the survival of a plant species and helps plants colonize new areas. Plants have evolved many different adaptations that enable their seeds to be dispersed. You observe. How are these milkweed seeds being dispersed? They're being dispersed by the wind. Many plants, such as cattails, produce seeds that are light enough to be carried by the wind. Some seeds have burrs that attach to animals that then carry them great distances before falling off. In some cases, fruits contain seeds which are eaten by birds and mammals. The seeds, which are often indigestible, are later deposited in wastes that are excreted. If the undamaged seeds land in a favorable place, they may sprout and flourish. Maybe you've planted seeds in a garden or flower pot and anxiously waited for them to sprout. This amazing process is called germination. Germination involves the initial growth of the seed. The process of seed germination is one of the miracles of nature, and it's one of the most important. Just about all of the fruits and vegetables we eat started as seeds planted by a farmer. In order for a seed to germinate, certain favorable conditions must exist. Some of the most important environmental conditions needed are the presence of water, the presence of oxygen, and a favorable temperature. Over time, the root system and stem grow to form a seedling, and later, a mature plant. In seed plants, there are two main patterns of growth. In one type of growth, called primary growth, stems grow taller and roots grow longer. Special tissues called apical meristems, located at the tops of stems, are the sites where stems and leaves grow. Auxiliary buds, also called lateral buds, form branches and flowers. Secondary growth is the process when roots, stems, and branches grow wider. Secondary growth tends to occur only in woody plants, such as in woody vines, shrubs, and trees. Secondary growth occurs via cell division in structures called lateral meristems. Lateral meristems, also referred to as cambium, are located along the sides of roots and stems. As you know, humans respond to changes in the environment. For example, when it gets cold, we put on more clothes. Plants also respond to conditions in their environment. An environmental condition or change that causes a response in a plant is called a stimulus. Examples of stimuli include gravity, length of day, light, moisture, temperature, and physical contact. The growth of a plant in a specific direction is a response to a stimulus. A response in the direction of a stimulus is called a tropism. Movement toward a stimulus is called a positive tropism, and movement away from a stimulus is called negative tropism. Most plants exhibit positive phototropism, meaning they grow toward light. This is a response that enables plants to gather more light for photosynthesis. Another example of a tropism is gravitropism. Most plant roots exhibit positive gravitropism, growing downward toward the force of gravity. But plant stems exhibit negative gravitropism, growing away from the force of gravity. An additional tropism called thigmotropism involves a response to touch. When the cells of this vine touch a surface, the cells on the opposite side of the stem grow longer, causing the stem to coil around the support. Sometimes, only specific parts of plants move in response to a stimulus. Nastic movements are responses that do not depend on the location of the stimulus. Many nastic movements are also reversible. This plant exhibits a nastic movement when its leaves fold after being touched. Similarly, this Venus flytrap responds to the touch of an insect by closing up. Growth responses exhibited in tropisms are thought to be caused by a class of substances called auxins. Auxin is a plant hormone that causes plant cells to grow longer. For example, in positive phototropism of stems, the concentration of auxins becomes higher on the shaded side of the stem, causing the cells to grow faster than on the lighted side. This causes the plant to bend toward the light. Another response exhibited by many plants is called photoperiodism. You may have noticed that some flowers, such as daylilies, close during the night and open again in the morning. This reaction is an example of photoperiodism. It was initially thought that photoperiodism was a plant response to daylight, but later scientists found that plants respond to the length of darkness at night and not necessarily to the amount of light. Plants are often described and grouped based on the length of darkness required for them to flower. During the past few minutes, we've explored many of the fascinating ways that plants grow, develop, and respond to stimuli. We began by discussing the major stages in the life cycle of seed plants. Then, more specifically, we focused on the important reproductive advantages of seeds. The characteristics and general types of fruits were illustrated. Next, the major seed structures were discussed. Some of the ways seeds are dispersed were explored. Germination, the means by which seeds start growing, was investigated. The processes of primary and secondary growth were discussed. We explored some of the fascinating aspects of plant tropisms and plant responses. And finally, we talked about some of the ways responses are controlled and regulated in the amazingly complex world of plants. Fill in the correct word to complete the sentence. Number 1. A seed consists of stored food and a complete plant. Number 2. A is actually the mature ovule surrounding a seed. Number 3. Angiosperms possess at least one seed leaf called a Number 4. The part of the seed called the gives rise to the roots. Number 5. Involves the initial growth of a seed and emergence of the primary root. Number 6. For germination to occur, a seed needs air and favorable temperatures. Number 7. In growth, stems grow taller and roots grow longer. Number 8. A response in the direction of stimuli is called a Number 9. The process of roots growing downward is referred to as a positive and number 10 are plant hormones that cause plant cells to grow longer.